Violent crime, meantime, is surging in big cities across the country, and Detroit is no different. A new poll asked residents what they think is the biggest issue facing that city. Nearly 20%, or 1 out of 5 people, answered public safety. This is compared to only 4% answering police reform. With me now is Joe Gamaldi. He's the National Fraternal Order of Police Vice President and a Houston police officer. Joe, what do you think of these results, and are you seeing a turnaround in the way people feel about police and the need for them in order to keep cities safe?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at that poll, 90% of residents actually said they wanted more police officers in their neighborhoods, not less. And a recent Washington Post poll saw the highest number they have seen in 2 decades of Americans who believe violent crime is a serious problem in this country. And thanks to rogue prosecutors and activist judges who've created a revolving door criminal justice system, they're right. In Detroit, murders are up over 20%. In Chicago, they're up 49%. In Philly, they're up 71%. In Portland, 135%. And the list goes on and on. And a recent poll out of Rasmussen said 60% of people across all demographics want the violent looters and rioters from last year to be prosecuted, not released like they did in New York for over 200 people. So what does it all mean? It means that people in this country, they want their communities to be safe. They want law and order, and they know that law enforcement is the only people that can stop the madness.
But so people, and I've talked about this with Eric Adams, former police officer, winning the Democratic nomination for mayor here in New York City. I look to that as a really important message, just the way this poll out of Detroit is that you had Black and Latino voters voting for Eric Adams in the outer boroughs. The elitist, liberal snots in Manhattan not voting for him. That was a message that people want safety and security, that is of paramount importance to them. However, even if you get a mayor in who is supporting the police, who wants to lock up violent criminals, who wants to stop the revolving door for criminals, who wants to jail those people who deserve to be jailed, but you still have liberal governors, you have left-wing city councils, you have liberal prosecutors. What's it going to take to really change this? Not only in terms of locking up people who deserve to be in jail, but also reversing this coddling, this anti-cop, not just rhetoric, but positioning by the left?
Well, I'll tell you. Law enforcement delivered historic crime reductions in this country for 20 years before we had this huge spike. And we can do it again. It's very simple. We need to restore the rule of law, which means no more letting people steal, $1,000 stuff out of the stores. We need to make sure that we vehemently prosecute violent criminals. No more letting the gun-toting felons out with a little slap on the wrist. And most of all, we need to make sure that we are providing law enforcement with the resources they need to do their job, which means, no, we're not going to defund the police. Instead, we're going to make sure we're supporting the police with the funding they need, and we're going to make sure that we get the community behind them as well. But if you're a community member right now and your hometown is being ravaged by crime, and you have politicians that aren't standing on a bedrock platform of law and order, vote their asses out, because that's the only way we're going to get this turned around.
You mentioned the decline in crime because of spot-on aggressive policing, and I mean aggressive in terms of locking up people who deserve to be in jail. But you have like a Gavin Newsom last week when he was asked about violent crime, he cited statistics. Well, in the last 30 years, violent crime is down, but that's not because of your policies. That violent crime has ticked up in California because you coddle those very criminals. And it's not just the violent crimes, it is the overall quality of life. California hit with a wave of brazen shoplifters, and Newsom says that he's trying to crack down on the surge. He signed this law last week, creating a crime task force, reestablishing organized retail theft as a crime. Will this make a difference?
Well, I think this is the act of a desperate man who's afraid of losing his job. But, I really love when people make flippant remarks like, well, we're not having as many murders as the mid-90s. Well, what exactly is an acceptable number of people to be murdered in our streets? So when we see these huge increases in murders and someone say, well, those are just statistics, those are people. Those are people in our community who are being murdered. And what they're doing in California with their laws as far as thefts are concerned is a complete and utter disgrace what they have done to business owners out there, where they are not prosecuting thefts under $950. So what happens? The criminals go out and they know there's no consequences, so they'll steal anything that's not nailed down. And ask yourself, if you're a business owner in California, or if you're thinking about opening up a business, why the hell would you do it in California where you know you're going to be treated like that? It's completely disgusting, and it needs to stop.
But people in California voted for that. That was what, Proposition 47? They voted for that.
They voted to drop it from a felony to a misdemeanor for theft under $950. But then the prosecutors, we're talking about in San Francisco and LA, said, we're not even going to prosecute that anymore. So, yes, they voted to make it a misdemeanor, but then they just completely decriminalized it. I mean, it's a joke. And that's why we're seeing viral videos every week of someone loading up trash bags full of merchandise and walking out the store. And that's why Walgreens closed 17 locations in San Francisco. The private sector gets it.
I get it, because I've seen my local drugstore here in New York City, across the street from where I live, being robbed relentlessly for a year and a half. I see it at least once a week. The valuable merchandise like ice cream, not just beer, but like ice cream, laundry detergent, that's locked up. And then in anything that isn't locked up, the shelves are now bare. They don't even restock things because it gets stolen. And I just want to point this out, Joe. This creates economic wastelands. Allowing petty theft to go unprosecuted, where crime isn't a crime, it hurts lower income residents more than anybody else, because access to food and goods disappears, and so do the jobs. And these elitist liberals, do they not understand that? I guess not, staring out from their, doorman building 30 floors up, or watching the news from the Hamptons.
Yeah, and I think what you see is it actually creates food deserts in our low-income neighborhoods where they don't even have stores that they can go to where they can get affordable groceries. And, what you like to hear from people on the far left, well, this is just a victimless crime. Well, it's not a victimless crime, because that business owner suffers and they have to lay people off out of the workforce. And then who do you think they pass those costs on to? Us, the law-abiding consumer, has to pay the additional money because we're allowing people to just run around lawlessness. It's completely ridiculous, and it needs to stop.
It needs to stop. Joe Gamaldi, great to see you.